Welcome to the Divine Play Podcast,
a practical guide to living with joy.
Welcome to another episode of the Divine Play Podcast. I am Shannon Morrison.
I'm Marilena Lee.
And we are so excited to have our next guest, Mr. Jon Rokochy, here with us. He understands addiction and he doesn't like it. He intimately knows the destruction it can cause in relationships, and he has a deep desire to see families break free from the cycle of addiction and live peaceful, purposeful lives. Jon holds a master's degree in marriage and family counseling and is the founder of Brilliant Strategies Coaching. Jon's mission is to see families free from addiction. He coaches loved ones of addicts to break free from the addictive cycle, offers meaningful help to their addicted loved ones, and lives a life they love. Live a life they love? I probably messed that up. It is okay. We are here for all of this conversation. Jon, thank you so much for being here on our podcast.
Thank you, ladies. What a pleasure it is to be here with both of you. It's one of my favorite things to talk about is addiction and recovery. I get it. I've been in this world for a long time, and I really look forward to diving in and seeing where this conversation goes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So besides your bio, I call you Coach Jon. It'll probably come up in our conversation. So I'll try to say Jon. But besides your bio, what we read today, tell us a little bit about you, the human you are.
So I am married, just celebrated 7 years with my beautiful wife, Shannon. And we have Edward is our mutt. He's our boy. So we live in Alberta in Canada, where I own an occupational health company. And I've had that for a number of years, 14 years. And I'll just tell a quick story about how that started, because that's usually the question that I get when you've got a master's in counseling. How do you go from that to starting and having an occupational health company for 14 years now? So I worked in addiction treatment and in an inpatient addiction treatment center for many years. And I was a manager there, and oil companies would phone us and say, "You guys do drug and alcohol rehab. Do y'all do drug testing?" And I said no enough times that I went and talked to our director and said, clearly there's a market here. And so I got us doing testing for a bit at the treatment center, and then that evolved into the center getting away from it, and I started that. So we do safety-sensitive testing, medical testing for safety-sensitive companies like oil and gas and trucking. So that's a big part of my life, managing that business. And I am a family recovery coach, and this is as well. So Brilliant Strategies Coaching is perhaps the job that I really enjoy the most, because this is where I find that I get to make some of the biggest impact, because I know what addiction does to families, and I know it doesn't just anybody who gets addiction knows it doesn't just impact the addict. It can't help but impact everybody around them. Anybody who they're living with, their parents, their friends. So that's who I get to work with, is loved ones, is everybody around them, to figure out how do we help this person get sober, even when they don't want to get sober. It's really difficult work, and it's really rewarding work. So for fun, I'm just planning a trip with about 10 guys. Our annual guys trip is coming up, where we're going to go for a few days away to a cabin. It's going to involve skidooing and sledding and hiking and skating and all the things. So I like adventure. I like being outside. So
that is amazing. It's amazing. Oh my gosh. I love that you have this group of humans. I know that you do this annually, and I think it's absolutely phenomenal that you continue to make it happen and plan it and just do the thing. Because I constantly am like, we get to do this, we get to create this, and it doesn't get created. And so I love that you do that, and you take the time and you plan it and make it happen. I worked in mental health and addiction clinic. And so my job was to get the human to the treatment center. My job was to that for mental health and addiction. And I know that for substance abuse, whether it is whatever substance you choose, it is a choice. Like mental health, I could take them and they had to, you had to go. It was not really a choice. But for drug and alcohol counseling, it's like if they don't want to go, they don't have to go. And I think that's harder for families, right? To get the help for their family member, their loved one. So kudos to this work that you do with the families, because they are left to be like, what do we do? How do we help our human, right?
Absolutely. Because you're right, we can't force somebody to make a choice. We can't make a choice for somebody else. Sometimes we can look at somebody else's life and say, your life is a mess. It's falling apart. You're ruining yourself. You're ruining your kids, your spouse. You're putting your jobs on the line. There can be so many things that can be falling apart all around them. And from the outside, we can look at them and say, it would be pretty obvious what the solution here is. You can just stop drinking or using or participating, whatever your addictive behavior is. But if only it was that simple. And that's a big part of what I get to do with family is, give them a glimpse of it's not that simple. For loved ones, for some people, for some of us who've lived addiction, we get it. It's not just, just stop drinking. Well, if it was that simple, they would have done it a long time ago. And I guarantee every alcoholic, every addict has tried many, many times. It's not that simple. They need support. It is simple. The solution is simple, but the road to recovery involves a lot of people and a lot of support. So loved ones get to know, what does it take? They need to know what's required, what works, what doesn't work. And a lot of our harping on people and guilt tripping and shaming and constantly reminding them of the negative impact their choices are having on their life doesn't actually work. What it actually does is it contributes to the shame identity that an addict can carry over themselves. And it just reinforces this shame identity that actually drives them back to their addicted behavior. So we get to learn new ways as loved ones, as people on the outside who want to support and encourage someone to step into recovery. We get to learn new ways that actually work. And one of the first things that loved ones get to do is they actually get to be the first to step out of the cycle of addiction. It doesn't always have to work that way, but if your loved one is still in active addiction, guess what? You don't have to wait for them to get sober before you step out. You can step out of the craziness, the chaos, the craziness of addiction first. And then from that solid, stable, peaceful place, then invite them to come out and join you.
That is amazingly beautiful. Wow.
And it's powerful medicine. And I think, I am really open about my recovery. I've been sober for 4 years. I got sober on June 24th, 2019. And, it's really interesting because I started drinking at age 14, probably. And I was an alcoholic from the get-go. I had no clue I was an alcoholic until I was 38. And so I think that's another thing that's really important for people to remember, right? Is that what you see as the obvious solution, to me is the solution to my problem. It's the solution to my pain. It's the solution to my suffering. And it's the way I'm self-medicating myself. And sometimes I don't even realize that it is what is causing the disaster, the dumpster fire that has become my life. And I really didn't get that. And it's so amazing to see somebody out there in the world supporting the friends and family and loved ones of people, because they don't get as much support. They just don't. The focus is always on the one that's considered broken. But as you said, it's a family. It touches everybody in a family. I grew up in an alcoholic home, and I learned how to be an alcoholic from really early childhood, right? I learned how to numb out and hide it and sweep things under the rug. And there were a few things that I saw as I was kind of perusing some of your really inspirational content. If you are not following Jon on Facebook, you will be after this. Go follow him. He's got so much inspiring content and really practical tools for like ways to have boundaries and like ways to begin your week and questions to ask yourself before reacting. And there were a couple words that I really saw that really stuck out to me as someone who's been through recovery and someone who also supports people through recovery. And the two words, huh?
I want to hear them. This is going to be good.
Yeah. So the two words that stuck out to me in just the small amount of content that I was able to go through, and we talk on this show, we talk all the time about barriers to joy. And when we're in recovery, or and as a family in recovery, whether you're the alcoholic or the family member or the friend, I think what gets really hard sometimes in recovery is there are barriers to joy. And so two big barriers to joy: control and rushing. Wishing you were somewhere further along than you are, wanting to be 5 years sober when you're only 6 months sober, right? That's something I see really commonly is like people are like, I just want to skip ahead to where you're at right now, 4 years sober. And I'm like, you can't do that. And then control. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about those two barriers to joy and healing, because that's really what they are. They're barriers to healing. And how do you get past that? How do you help people do that?
Control and rushing. So rushing, I'll speak to that one first. Because I think, how do we have joy and how do we live in joy every day is to live in today, is to live in the present. It's to not be in our past, living in regret and wish I would have done and did things differently. So living in the past is going to lead to depression. Living in the future is going to lead to anxiety. So we get to choose to live in today. So to me, that's how do I live in joy is what am I grateful for today? Like you said, I wish the person with 6 months sobriety wishes they had 5. The family member whose loved one has not yet gone into treatment or sought help, comparing themselves to the mother or father whose son is in treatment and they just completed 60 days and they're all happy and life's better. And as long as we live in comparison, comparison is going to rob us of our joy 100%. Rushing, the antidote to rushing is gratitude. And what do I have to be grateful for today? Maybe, and for the addict, maybe it's, I just didn't drink today. For the loved one, maybe that looks like I didn't lose my temper today. When they came home drunk last night and they said they were going to be home at 10 and they stumbled in at 2:00 and I don't know where they were and who they were with. And they woke me and the kids up in the middle of the night. I didn't say anything. And for today, that's a massive win. Because I know saying something and losing my mind at them, it actually just adds to the problem. So I'm not going to do that. And, it's not about making life easier for the addict, but I'm not going to do that for my sake, because I know when I lose my temper, it robs me of my joy. So I'm just gonna leave it, and I'm gonna say, we'll talk about this when they sober up. Maybe, if we do, I'm gonna choose my battles. So, the other one you mentioned was control. Specifically speaking to loved ones of addicts, they love to control. I see this so often, especially with parents. So who I work with is parents of their kids are adults and still addicted, whether they're living at home or not. So I work with a lot of parents with adult addicted children, and I work with spouses. That tends to be the main two groups. And they love to control because what they're seeing is somebody else's life kind of falling apart and a dumpster fire. To use your term, love it. Life can be a dumpster fire over in someone else's world, and you just want to fix it for them. And one of the things we know in recovery is that when it comes to addiction, this is straight from Al-Anon. Anybody who's familiar with Al-Anon, they know the 3 C's. I didn't cause it, can't cure it, and I can't control it. And I think Dr. Phil's famous question really comes to mind for me is, how's that working for you? I love to ask family members who are wanting to control and fix and save and do life for their loved one. That's a great question. How's that working for you? Well, it's been a year now. Is there any change? If not, it's time for a new tactic. We cannot control anyone else. It's a big thief of joy, for sure. So realizing I can't control anyone, it's hard enough trying to control myself and my own desires and my own whims. So that's who we get to focus on. I get to focus on controlling myself, and that's it.
That's a big one. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge, because control, as a double winner, somebody who was an addict and also grew up in an alcoholic home and was married to alcoholics and all the things. Boy, control is my favorite vice. Like, I always tell people, like, we're all control freaks. Like, we're all major control freaks. And letting go of control is like, you can pry it from my cold, dead hands, but it doesn't make me happy. Control.
Yeah, sorry.
No, control just doesn't make me happy. It doesn't bring me peace, right? It doesn't give me anything. Control it takes from me. Control is a thief.
Mm-hmm. It gives us a false sense of something. It gives me, it feels like I'm doing something. It feels like I'm supporting. It feels like I'm changing or having an impact or having an effect. It's just like an alcoholic, for example. Alcoholic has a problem. Booze becomes a solution to the problem, but it doesn't actually fix it. For minutes, it fixes because I escape and I forget and I'm not feeling and I'm numb. And so momentarily it's an escape, but long term, it actually makes things worse. And I think control is the same way. It kills relationship. It kills connection. It kills intimacy. Because the message that it sends is, if I'm trying to control you and you feel like I'm controlling you and not allowing you to be your own person, it's really insulting. It's really one of the biggest insults, because it's essentially selling you, you're not capable of running your life and leading your life, so I'm just going to do it for you. It's one of the most insulting things that we can do. And it's entirely selfish. It's entirely self-serving, because it's hard for what control for me is about is it's hard for me to watch you do what you do. I don't like the choices you're making, and what you're doing. So I don't like it. I'm uncomfortable with it. So I'm going to step in and change you so that I feel better, so that I have a different experience. It's 100% self-serving. And for loved ones of addicts, it's so crucial for them to realize this, that this is enabling, this is insulting, this pushes your loved one away. When you say, because most of them come to me and say, Jon, help me get my loved one sober. I want to help them get sober. And part of my job as a coach is to reflect back and, show them their blind spots and show them how they're showing up. And one of the big ways that they do that is a lot of the things that they're doing to try to help their loved one get sober and make different choices is actually repelling them and pushing them away. Controlling them and reminding them of what's not working in their life, that don't build me up. That doesn't make me attracted to you and want to come closer to you and listen to your ideas and get advice from you and think, oh, maybe this person has something to offer me. It actually does the exact opposite.
It's so true. I feel like this is not even just for families in recovery or people in recovery. Like, this is like, everybody listen. Like, everybody please take note, right? Like, this is not just recovery magic. This is relationship magic right here.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And I feel like so much of the work that I do in recovery is, this applies to everyone.
It does.
Yeah.
When you were speaking to that, Jon, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you. When you were speaking to that, like, I feel like you were feeling it. Like it was almost like you were there in an instance. So this has been your experience, and now you are sharing, right? Could you allude to that a little bit? Like, because I felt the pain in, I don't know, there was just so much pain in your words. Like, seriously, it creates shame. what you're saying, it creates shame. And I was going back to my own childhood, and I was just like thinking about all these things. And I'm like, yeah, it makes you feel like shit. It makes you feel less than. It makes you feel more shame. It makes you like, well, F it, because like I'm either doomed or I'm damned, and it doesn't make a difference, right? And I think that people get to feel that way, and then it just keeps the cycle going, right? And I know that alcoholism is in my family, addiction is in my family, and my dad was an addict. It runs thick in my DNA, and so there's other things. There's codependency is an addiction. There's so many things that get passed down in lineage, right? You'll hear me talk about generations, right? There's so many things that get passed down in the lineage with addiction and addictive behavior. And so this is for everybody. This conversation is for everybody. I love that you brought that up, Marilena, because it's so true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's for everybody. And like you mentioned, I feel it and I get it because I know it and I've lived it. And, personally in my family, like most families, I'm sure, I've been around in this world long enough. I don't think there's not a family that's not touched by addiction in some way, whether that's drugs, alcohol, codependency, sex, gambling, food, electronics. Like there's so many different ways that we can escape and avoid and numb the pain in our life and just check out and not be present. And, it's just the list of ways goes on and on. Some are more socially acceptable than others, and some have just a lot more stigma than others. But most families get addiction, just like me and just like mine. Mm-hmm. And like so many people, I'll just share about the person when I'm talking about control, and when I was not at my best, when I was in the midst of my own dumpster fire of a life in my past, and my sister, I'm going to take that, Marilena, thank you. I had one.
It'll be in the book.
Yeah.
Just give me a footnote.
Okay. Deal. So when I was in my, not at my best, in the midst of my addictive behavior. And, everybody around me was looking from the outside. I mean, a lot of people weren't seeing it, but the people close to me saw, and they knew what was going on. And there was pressure in my family from some people who didn't know what to do. John's a bit of a mess. I don't know what to do. So there's a lot of pressure put on one other person in my family, one of my sisters, to kind of step in and fix and save and rescue and control. And not knowing any better, she was 100% controlling. So not knowing any better, not knowing what to do, she just stepped in and managed my life for me, phone me, check up on me constantly. Guilt and shame was a big part of things at that time, thinking that that's going to help to change and motivate. And what that did was, again, I've lived it. I get it, because what that did to me was it taught me that I'm incapable. Like, just so reinforced the message, Jon, you are incapable. I don't believe in you. You can't do this on your own. And it was interesting because I was actually being told the opposite. Verbally, what would come out of her mouth and in other people's mouth is, Jon, if you only knew how amazing you were. Jon, there's so much potential in you. Jon, you're so amazing. Everybody loves you. You're so wonderful. So I would verbally hear these things, but actions would be different. Actions are, I'm going to step in, I'm going to micromanage your life because you're a mess. And I'm going to check up on you and babysit you and treat you like a little kid. So this was like these two things didn't line up. And when words and actions, I think when we hear different things, we always tend to go towards the actions. Actions speak louder than words, right? So that's what.
Absolutely.
And so I felt smaller. My self-image got so much smaller and smaller and smaller. And I started to believe, I don't know that I'm capable of change or being different. I don't know that I can get out of this. You're saying this, I don't really believe it. I don't see it. So I get it. And I can look at that and see control doesn't work. So so when I work with families, it's I can pick this up real fast. And I love it's important for them to know, like, I know your loved one is acting like a 15-year-old kid, even though they're 30 or 40 years old and married with 2 kids of their own. I know emotionally they're acting like a 15-year-old. As long as you treat them like the 15-year-old that they're acting like, you're just going to keep them down in that spot. You get to treat them as the 40-year-old man that they are. You get to call them higher. You get to speak to what's in them and have that expectation of them. I expect this of you because I know you're capable of that. And I'm not going to hold you to anything less, because anything less is me standing for your mediocrity. And I'm not okay with that. That's not going to be what pulls you out of this. I'm calling you higher. That's what I'm going to do. And I know, speaking like this and talking like this to parents or spouses who are in the midst of the chaos and the mess, it can be like, well, I'm not even there. I need to be built up. I'm a beaten up, I'm emotionally beaten up myself. So I need some support so I can get solid in order for me to be a support to that person. So that's what being in recovery and getting coaching for, families get to get coaching for themselves so they can get built up and get solid and grounded and speak from a place of authority so that you've got something to offer. Would you send, if a loved one is anxious and, kind of living on an emotional roller coaster, highs and lows and one day to the next, like is so common for the experience of loved ones of an addict. If you're in that space on an emotional roller coaster and that's where you're at, a really hard question to ask yourself is, would you send your addicted loved one to someone like you for counseling or coaching? Likely not. You'd want, right? It's not a nice, easy question. But
no, that's a hard question.
What? Yeah, it's a hard question. That's very true. No.
Well, and I think it's so important to remember that like we have to do our own healing work before we begin to meddle in the healing work of other people, right? Because anytime we find ourselves being a rescuer, there is some baggage underneath that. Like there's a reason that I feel like I need to jump in and save you and rescue you and do all the things. And it is so much more complex than I think you can't handle it. Like it is usually, I know for me in my own journey, right? Like anytime I'm trying to rescue somebody else, it's because I think that's how I'm going to get love, or it's where my worth comes from, or like, I need to be needed or whatever. And that makes a victim out of the other person. And when somebody makes a victim out of me, right? Like I rise to meet the occasion, right? Like you want to treat me like I'm helpless and I can't handle my own life? Fine, I won't, and it's like, I don't know. It's a really complex thing. And I think it's so important to remember it's okay to ask for help, because obviously, right? Like if I'm over here in rescuer, or like even like being really aggressively like telling somebody what a piece of, crap they are and what a dumpster fire their life is, there's something major going on in here I need help with. Like I cannot help somebody until I put my own oxygen mask on first. And I think it's important to remember that if that's happening over here, I need oxygen. Like I need oxygen. I'm not operating on full mental capacity, right? I need oxygen because I can't help. And I think it's important to really realize that that's a red flag that I need oxygen. Does that make sense?
100%.
And I love what you said, Jon, that a lot of which is what I kind of like was speaking to you. And thank you so much for sharing, because I knew there was such profound connection there. Is tends to run in families. Like the negativity, the way they grew up, or the way that they were taught, or what they know, or their life is just in shambles. Like I am not strong enough to speak to or to assist in this. Like this is your deal. Well, no, if the family wants to be around, what you're saying is like, I see your job. I see your coaching business as a completely different visual now. I'm such a visual human. And so how long have I talked to you? Like a year. And I see it at a completely different light now, because it is so true. The negative, what I call a shit show, the dumpster fire that we're alluding to runs in families. And if you cannot help, you have to help the whole circle for it to heal and then it not carry on. And I'm here for all of that impact and all of that healing. Like we have had many a conversation, right? So I love what you do. I love that. I love that you're helping the families realize and heal and elevate so that they can be of service to the human that has the addiction, because they're realizing I got the mirror image of this is I have something to heal here too. And perfection is an illusion. And I feel like that grasp of control is part of this healing that needs to be done. Wow. I just had so many things come across my mind.
Well, let's talk about, I love that you just brought up, addiction affects everybody in the family, and the whole family gets to get healthy together. A lot of families will live under the illusion that if we can just get the addicted person to treatment, if we could just get them to rehab, all of our problems would go away. They're the problem. They need to go away for help. They're the one messing everything up. They're the one with the issues. They need to go and get help. If they would do that, everything would be fine. We could go back to how we were perfect before. I remember how we were before. We were perfect. Life was great.
No, you were faking it.
Exactly. You're faking it. It was a lie.
You're skipping, Marilena. You're skipping.
I just resonate so much with everything you're saying. I'm like, nah, you were faking it, y'all. Like it wasn't real.
You get it.
I'm like, yeah.
The end of the movie. Gosh.
But it just illuminates the issues that were there before. Because we can be so good at just sweeping things under the rug, pretending, avoiding, pushing things off. It's not that bad. It'll get better. It's not a big deal. It's just a phase. There's so many things we tell ourselves. He's going to grow out of it. Our marriage is fine. Yeah, we haven't really talked to each other on an intimate level for a year, but it's fine. Like it's going to get better. There's just so many things we do. So this idea that if they would just go and get help, everything would be better is absolute BS. So we get to just, loved ones get to get that right out of the gates. Addiction is a family issue. It's not just one person that gets sick. Everybody gets sick. If you grew up with, addiction in your family, kids instinctively pick up on, oh, dad's having a bad day. Dad's stressed out. Dad's angry. What does dad do? Oh, he goes and he gets a beer, right? Like, that's the solution. Nobody's telling him drink beer to deal with anger. We just pick that up. When mom and dad fight, and if kids are growing up in a family where there's trauma and verbal abuse, mom and dad fight, someone yells, what do? How do we deal with that? Somebody gets in the car, we throw things, you might learn, we push, we get in the car and we drive away, we yell, we avoid, we do silent treatment, right? We pick this stuff up, we learn it. So it's not enough just for one person to go and get help. Everybody gets to get help, because I guarantee if you get an addict goes to treatment for a month or 2 or 3 months and they go back to that family, chances are statistically it's only a matter of time before they're back using again. If they're the only one that does any work of recovery, statistically it's only a matter of time. So when we would have people in inpatient addiction treatment, at the end, as we're nearing the end of treatment and we're coming with, creating an aftercare plan for them, you're going to leave here at some point and this gets to continue. So we're coming up with a plan. A big part of it is tell us about your family. Where are you going to stay? Please do whatever you can to get your family to come to the family program. I started a 4-day intensive family program while I was in that treatment center, which was crazy powerful.
Absolutely.
Please do everything you can to get them to come. Are they going to Al-Anon? Are they getting some support? The more that the family does, the better that the addicted person is going to be set up for long-term success. If they don't, it's unfortunately a matter of time.
Oh my gosh.
That's powerful.
So much. Yeah. Like something came to me, and even I started drinking at 14 as well. And it was a vice to numb and a vice to, like, if there was frustration or anger or whatever, they just started drinking whatever time of day. It is what it is. And So I resonate with all of this so much. It is ridiculous. And also, like you just said that if there's cycles of like even the tendencies, right? And so something that just came up, and so I'm going to share my thing that I used to do. My child, we went out to ice cream one day, and it was my husband, my now husband, and my youngest child, and she is in college. And she's like, I was like, I just don't understand why my other child like runs away or hides or hangs up the phone or whatever. Like, this is her tendency when she gets frustrated or overwhelmed, shuts down and is like, and my youngest daughter is like, can I be honest with you? And I was like, this shit's about, my husband's like, this is about to get real. And he like leans in. And I was like, absolutely. I'm here for all of it. Right. And he's just like waiting. And he goes, you taught us that. And I was like, okay, tell me more. Right. This is a mirror. She's like, it's a mirror image. When you got frustrated, when you got overwhelmed, when you were like ready to cry, you left.
Oof.
When you got frustrated, you got overwhelmed, you were like, you couldn't take it anymore. You're like, I'm going to my room. And I was like, thank you. Thank you. And it is like, I didn't see that. I saw it as like, I didn't freak out and scream and call blah, 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 say all these negative things, but it was still not healthy. It still taught them a way of numbing, a way of not dealing with, a way of sidelining, a way of, nothing ever got finished. Nothing ever got healed. The conversation didn't go anywhere. And there was shame and blame and nothing, all that, which led to other things probably. And I probably drank. Just being honest. 12 years ago, I probably drank after that. Anyway, I just had that image, and it is, our kids watch everything. It did not have to be like, I told them this is what you should do in cases of whatever. It's, they saw it, they resonated, they do it. They're acting out on it. And I didn't even know it. And my 20-year-old, again, being a parent is so educational. I learn stuff every single day of my life. And it is amazing. And I'm so glad that I was at a space that I'm like, yes, please be honest with me. Tell me to my face what I do wrong, because I get to learn. But yeah, I'm here for all the healing. So thank you so much for sharing that, because my eyes have been opened to a completely different light as well. It runs thick, and it does. I hear you. The whole family gets to heal. We never worked with the whole family. Like, we always talked about like what they were going home to, the, coping skills. What do they have in place? Like, who are we going to talk to? What group meeting are you going to go to? But it wasn't about the whole family. And I dealt with a lot of families being in the position that I was before. And even in the position of me coaching what I do now, I mean, addiction is involved, right? In domestic violence, there's always vices and, ways of dealing with things to numb pain. And so I get to keep that in mind. Oh my gosh, this has been, I don't even know what to say, Jon. Jeez. Wowza. What an amazing conversation. So this is a heavy conversation, and a lot of healing can be had. And I know that you are creating this beautiful impact because you know the depths of the dumpster fire. What it can do to your family, what it can do to families around you. This is just, I think we just call this the dumpster fire show.
He has
this episode.
Fire extinguisher. It's excellent. Fire extinguishers are available.
They are.
That's right.
That's right.
And I think, to kind of continue with what you were saying, Shannon, about, stepping into the fire extinguisher conversation is, yes, our kids watch everything. And so many of us can live in, the past and live in regret and live in shame and think, oh my gosh, my kids watched everything and I messed them up. That doesn't serve us to live there. What we get to do is we get to step into forgiveness and say, I did the best I could at the time. Did I make all the right decisions? Heck no. Would I have done things differently? Probably. But today is a new day. And I still have my kids here. And my kids are still watching me. Even if they're 30, even if they're 40, even if they're 50 years old, they're still watching me. So I can choose to make different decisions today. I can put the bottle down myself. I can stop screaming and yelling and reacting in unhealthy ways today. And I can be that example to my kids, to my spouse, no matter how old, no matter how young they might be. I can be that for my kids today. It's never too late. And we get to remember that. It's never too late to start again. And I think that's just, you know, music to so many loved ones' ears, is to know that, yeah, it's not too late. As long as there's life, there's hope. I can start again. And we need to remember that.
This one hits me like right here. Because when I went down the final rabbit hole, this is the second time I've cried today. Jeez. And when I went down the rabbit hole when they were about 14, I messed up. I messed up a lot. And I don't live in regret. But there are some things I'm still really like, I have trouble facing about things that I did. And I get to remember that how I move forward today, I get to choose the rest of my minutes, you know, and how I move forward now with forgiveness and kindness towards myself gets to be a lesson for my children as they move through their own dark nights of the soul, because they're going to have them. And so that one landed. I'm not crying. You're crying.
We're all crying. It's fine. Yeah. It's so true. I feel like I feel like it's so easy to go to shame and blame. We do it to ourselves first. And I think, I don't know if it's a female gene. It's probably both. I'm not going to be like sexist here. It's probably both genes. But we are so bad and hard on ourselves, and we are ever evolving. We are ever growing. We only know what we know. And we just, like you said, Jon, I really feel like this is like the goal is to stay in the freaking present. Like sit here and create today the best you can create today. And I most likely messed up yesterday in something. I forgot something. I didn't do something right. I was late for something, whatever. Okay. But what are we creating today? Because today is all we can. This is just emotional baggage, right? The past is like you said, is where the blame and shame and the control and all this depression happens. Anxiety is looking to the future and being like, but I should be freaking 10. Yeah, okay. We should be so much further ahead. But my thing is, like I always say, and I brought up in another episode, I brought up Tony Robbins and Neil Graziosi. Like they say all the time, when was the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago. When is the next best time to plant a tree? Today, right? And so it is so easy to blame ourselves for what we didn't do right, or to blame ourselves for staying too long, or for blaming ourselves for that last night that we got freaking annihilated and made an ass out of ourselves in front of our kids, because I remember that day. And what we get to do is sit in, but what are we creating right now? Even though, what do we know now that we can create and that we can do? And what is the impact that we're going to have on our kids now? Because we've shifted for them. We've shifted for ourselves, and we're healing ourselves so that they can also, right? And we're saying the hard things out loud so that we're healing our family, and so that others can say things out loud that suck and that are hard so they can heal their families too. And that brings me freaking joy, is that powerful ripple that we three right now are creating in this beautiful conversation, because it is a hard freaking conversation, right? Hard stuff happens, and it's what we do with it and the joy that we create every single day for ourselves that gets us out of the muck, that gets us out of that hellhole, the dumpster fire, whatever. Find our fire extinguisher, our coach Jon, to help heal our family,
Right.
so that everybody has a fire extinguisher. Because friends, life hits us sideways and things are constantly going to come up and the days are going to be hard. And it's what you do with that hard. You take your fire extinguisher or you don't, is what is going to create your tomorrow. That's what I hear you saying.
Love it. And I think, in those moments when we find ourselves living in the past and being, holding on to, I can't believe I did this or said that, or I was that way. And we've all got those moments. So what do we do in those moments? How do we move through them? How do we move into the present? I don't want to move into the future. I just want to come out of the past into now. And that's where joy is. That's where peace lives. That's where joy resides, is being in the present. So how do we do that? I found there's a few things that really work. And one of the most important things is I get to remind myself who I am. Because shame tells me I'm an awful parent. Shame says I'm a failure. Shame says you're never going to change. Shame says, Jon, you were like that then, you're always going to be that. Once a fill in the blank, always a fill in the blank. There's no hope. Maybe you even heard these words spoken over you from other people, hurtful words that aren't true about you. We get to change how we think and how we talk to ourselves about ourselves. And we get to speak this out loud. I am not my past. And we get to say not just what I'm not, I get to say what I am, and I get to declare it, and my ears get to hear my mouth say it myself. So it gets deep down inside of me. I am an overcomer. I'm free. I'm joyful. I'm purposeful. I am a connector. I am a blessing to people. I create joy everywhere I go. I am connected. I'm a courageous man. I am peaceful. We get to declare this over ourselves. And I find that's one of the most important things to do, to shift out of blame and shame, is to step into truth about who I am and who you are right now. And if you don't know, you get to get around people who are going to remind you the truth of who you are. Sometimes that's what we need. To be vulnerable and to say, I'm feeling like garbage about myself right now. Can you tell me what I'm good at? Can you tell me the gifts that you see in me, please? I need to hear it. And eventually you're going to write that down, and you're going to remind yourself and encourage yourself never to get to the point of being an island and never needing anyone. We're always going to need people. Thank goodness for family and good friends who will encourage us. But I think that's one of the keys to coming out of shame and out of the past and into now, is knowing and reminding ourselves of who we are.
I feel like
Oh my
we
gosh.
we didn't even ask our signature question and he just answered it. There's your practical, pragmatic tool for living with joy, y'all. Come out of the past, come out of shame, and come into the truth of who you are, which is so much more than the sum of your mistakes, right? We're so much more than that. And
Absolutely. And sorry.
Yeah,
Marlena. And I love this that you brought this up, because this was powerful. This has created, and I can absolutely share this in some facet, but if you do not have them in you, if you do not know and you don't see yourself like other people see you, Jon just said, ask people that are around you, what are the gifts that they see in you? I did this because I was at a very low spot and I was like, what in the actual crap is going on, right? And I was just sitting in this sinking feeling. So I asked a human that spent a ton of time with me, and I said, what are the gifts you see in me? And like 10 seconds, she wrote out so many gifts that she saw in me. And then I added my own little things, and it is my mantra. It is huge. And it brings me to tears every single time, because like 90% of it, I didn't see at that point. Right? So if you do not know the gifts that you have, or you're at a point in time where you're like, I don't see the goodness. I don't see any goodness, right? When you look in the mirror, ask for support. And you might be really surprised, and then write them down and make them. I invite you to like use them and read them out loud with your own voice, because that is a turning key point that you also mentioned, Jon, is to say them out in your own voice and have yourself listen to you saying good things. You did answer what joy is to you and how you bring yourself to joy. And we didn't even have to ask you. So beautiful. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This has been such an amazing whirlwind of an emotional conversation, and I love all of it. I love all of it. This has been a blessing. Thank you so much, Jon, for being here, sharing your expertise, your talents, and your time.
Thank you. It was a joy.
I have goosebumps.
Thank you
It's
for
a
the
joy
work.
to be with you, talking about joy.
I think we're all like, no, you're awesome. No, you're awesome. No, you're awesome, right? But like, thank you so much for being here too, and doing the work that you do out there. It's so needed, and I firsthand can attest to the power of like healing the family, and I just love that you're out there doing that. And I'm so grateful to have talked to you because I was reminded today. I was reminded today of the power of my own recovery. So thanks for coming.
Oh, you're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Where can people find you if they're interested in working with you or learning more about the work you're doing in the world?
The best place is Facebook. Brilliant Strategies Coaching. That's where I keep most things updated. Workshops, family recovery workshops. You can find out about those. There's boundaries, mini courses, one-on-one coaching. So all the info, and just, like Marlena said, join the Facebook page. If you're just looking for a place to be encouraged and be inspired and be around a community of people that are going through the same thing as you, be a part of the Facebook community. Brilliant Strategies.
Yes, sometimes finding your tribe is the first step in recovery too.
Absolutely.
Realizing that you're not alone and you don't have to walk it alone. Yes, go follow.
Absolutely. Follow Jon. Thank you so much, Jon.
You're so
This has been awesome. Have an amazing day. Thank you. We'll see you next episode.
See you.